Welcome, brave souls. Today, prepare yourself as we dive into the dark world of Minuke. This is no ordinary home, its walls whisper secrets, and its shadows conceal unspeakable horrors. Minuke is an ugly house that one would do well to avoid. This gripping story is taken from Tomato Cane, the first collection tales by Nigel Kneale, one of England's finer writers. Born in 1922 in Lancashire, Kneale studied law, changed elegance to the theatre, acted for 2 years at Stratford-on-Avon, and wrote in his spare time. In 1949, the British theatre was not healthy, and Kneale was advised to try writing full-time. Soon after, Tomato Cane appeared in Great Britain and America. Science fiction buffs know Kneale as the creator of Quatermass series, the scripts of which are available in Penguin paper editions. The first of the trilogy was filmed as The Creepy Unknown, starring Brian Donlevy as Quatermass. It is still being shown today. Minuke by Nigel Kneale. The estate agent kept an uncomfortable silence until we reached his car. Frankly, I wish you hadn't got wind of that, he said. Don't know how you did. I thought I had the whole thing carefully disposed of. Oh, please get in. He pulled his door shut and frowned. It puts me in a rather awkward spot. I suppose I'd better tell you all I know about that case, or you'd be suspecting me of heaven knows what kind of chicanery in your own. As we set off to see the property I was interested in, he shifted the cigarette to the side of his mouth. It's quite a distance, so I can tell you on the way there, he said. We will pass the very spot as a matter of fact, and you can see it for yourself, such as there is to see. It was away back before the war, said the estate agent. At the height of the building boom, we remember how it was, urban development in full blast everywhere, speculative builders taking things up almost overnight. Though, at least you could get a house when you wanted it in those days. I have always been careful in what I handle. I want you to understand that. Then one day, I was handed a packet of Coast Road bungalows for letting, pulled up by one of these gone tomorrow firms and bought by a local man. I can't say I exactly jumped for joy, but for once the things looked alright and business is inclined to be business. The desirable residence you heard about stood at the end of the row. Actually, it seemed to have the best sight, on a sort of natural platform, as it were, raised above road level and looking straight out over the sea. Like all the rest, it had a simple 2-bedroom, lounge, living room, kitchen, bathroom layout, red tile roof, rough cast walls, ornamental portico, garden strip all around, sufficiently far from town but with all conveniences. It was taken by a man named Pritchard, cinema projectionist, I think he was, wife, a boy of 10 or so, and a rather young daughter. Oh, and dog, one of those black, lobe-eared animals. They christened the place Minuke, M-I-N-U-K-E, Minuke. Yes, that's what I said too, and not even the miserable excuse of its being phonetically correct, still hardly worse than most. Well, at the start everything seemed quite jolly. The Pritchards settled in and busied themselves with rearing a privet hedge and shoving flowers in. They had paid the first quarter in advance and, as far as I was concerned, were out of the picture for a bit. Then, about a fortnight after they had moved in, I had a telephone call from Mrs. P. to say that there was something odd about the kitchen tap. Apparently, the thing happened twice. The first time was when her sister was visiting them and tried to fill the kettle. No water would come through for a long time, then suddenly squirted violently and almost soaked the woman. I gathered the Pritchards hadn't really believed this, thought she was trying to find fault with their little nest. It had never happened before and she couldn't make it happen again. Then about a week later, it did with Mrs. Pritchard this time. After her husband had examined the tap and could find nothing wrong with it, he decided the water supply must be faulty. So they got onto me. I went round personally as it was the first complaint from any of these bungalows. The tap seemed normal and I remember asking if the schoolboy's son could have been experimenting with the main stop. When Mrs. Pritchard, who had been fiddling with the tap, suddenly said, "Quick, look at this, it's off now." They were quite cocky about its happening when I was there. It really was odd. I turned the tap to the limit, but not a drop, not even the sort of gasping gurgle you hear when the supply is turned off at the main. After a couple of minutes though, it came on. Water shot out with, I should say, about 10 times normal force, as if it had been held under pressure. Then gradually it died down and ran steadily. Both children were in the room with us until we all dodged out of the door to escape a soaking. It had splashed all over the ceiling, so they couldn't have been up to any tricks. I promised the Pritchards to have the pipes checked. Before returning to town, I called at the next two bungalows in the row. Neither of the tenants had any trouble at all with the water. I thought, well, that localized it at least. When I reached my office, there was a telephone message waiting from Pritchard. I rang him back and he obviously annoyed. "Look here," he said. "Not 10 minutes after you left, we have had something else happen." The wall of the large bedrooms cracked from top to bottom. Big pieces of plaster fell and the bed's in a terrible mess. And then he said, "You wouldn't have got me in a jerry-built place like this if I'd known." I had plasterers on the job next morning and the whole water supply to Minuke under examination. For about 3 days there was peace. The tap behaved itself and absolutely nothing was found to be wrong. I was annoyed at what seemed to have been unnecessary expenditure. It looked as if the Pritchards were going to be difficult, and I have had my share of that type. Fault-finding cranks occasionally carry eccentricity to the extent of a little private destruction to prove their points. I was on the watch from now on. Then it came again. Pritchard rang me at my home before 9 in the morning. His voice sounded a bit off shaky. "For God's sake, can you come around here right away?" he said. "Tell you about it when you get here." And then he said almost fiercely but quietly and close up to the mouthpiece, "There's something damned queer about this place. Dramatizing is a typical feature of all cranks, I thought, but particularly the little mousy kind like Pritchard." I went to Minuke and found that Mrs. Pritchard was in bed in a state of collapse. The doctor had given her a sleeping dose. Pritchard told me a tale that was chiefly remarkable for the expression on his face as he told it. I don't know if you are familiar with the layout of that type of bungalow. The living room is in the front of the house, with the kitchen behind it. To get from one to the other, you have to use the little hallway through 2 doors. But for convenience at meal times, there is a serving hatch in the hall between these rooms. The small wooden door slides up and down over the hatch opening. The wife was just passing a big plate of bacon and eggs through from the kitchen, Pritchard told me. When the hatch door came down on her wrist, I saw it and I heard her yell. I thought the cord must have snapped. So I said, all right, and went to pull it up because it's only a light wooden frame. Pritchard was a funny color, and as far as I could judge, it was genuine. Do you know it wouldn't come? I got my fingers under it and heaved, but it might weigh 200 weight. Once it gave an inch or so and then pressed harder. That was it. It was pressing down. I heard the wife groan. I said, "Hold on," and nipped round through the hall. When I got into the kitchen, she was on the floor, fainted, and the hatch door was hitched up as right as 9 pins. That gave me a turn. He sat down, quite deflated. It didn't appear to be put on. Still, ordinary neurotics can be almost as troublesome as out-and-out cranks. I tested the hatch gingerly and, of course, the cords were sound and it ran easily. Possibly a bit stiff at times, being new, I said. They are apt to jam if you are rough with them. And then, by the way, just what were you hinting on the phone? He looked at me. It was warm sunlight outside, with the bus passing, normal enough to take the mic out of Frankenstein's monster. Never mind, he said, and gave a sheepish half grin. Bit of, well, funny construction in this house too. I am afraid I was rather outspoken with him, let alone any twaddle about a month-old bungalow being haunted. I was determined to clamp down on this jerry-building talk. Perhaps I was beginning to have doubts myself. I rode straight off to the building company when I had managed to trace them, busy developing an arterial road about 3 counties away. I dare say my letter was on the insinuating side. I think I asked if they had any record of difficulties in the construction of this bungalow. At any rate, I got a sniffy reply by written, stating that the matter was out of their hands. In addition, their records were not available for discussion. Blind LA. And that's where we leave our story for now. The mystery deepens and the horror grows, but there's more to uncover. If you enjoyed this part, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so you wouldn't miss the next chilling installment. Make sure to turn on the notification bell to be the first to know when the next part is released. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe and keep the lights on.